Welcome to Sweater Weather, a podcast about Canadian arts and culture. I'm Aaron.
I'm Naomi.
Today we're talking about the TV show The Trades. It's a Crave original production co-produced by the Trailer Park Boys production company, starring Rob Wells, who is Ricky on the Trailer Park Boys. It's a workplace comedy, blue-collar humor. Isn't that right, Naomi?
Yes, all of that is true.
I feel like that's very much the Trailer Park Boys brand. Makes sense that a Trailer Park Boy himself and his production company would be involved in this.
Yeah. And so is it set in Nova Scotia? I feel like that's not exactly stated, but... No,
it's set at an oil... It's supposed to be like people working at an oil refinery. It's set in a... I don't know if have they even named it yet? It's not a real place. They give it a name, something like something Valley. Hold on.
But what part of Canada is it supposed to be in?
Well, it's filmed at a decommissioned oil refinery in Hamilton.
Oh, okay.
So very obviously, very industrial setting. But then there are interior scenes that are filmed at a trade school, like a community college in Nova Scotia, in Halifax and Dartmouth, I guess.
Okay, because it feels like maybe it's supposed to be in Nova Scotia. Some of the characters have maritime accents, like of course Ricky or Rob Wells.
Do you find he has a maritime accent?
Yeah.
I guess I've just stopped noticing and just figure that's how Ricky talks.
Right. And then at one point, like a character who I'm sure we'll talk about later describes herself as having worked out west at one point. So I guess
it's not out west.
It's not out west. Anyway, could be anywhere.
It's supposed to be anywhere Canada, basically. Any blue collar town Canada. This is created by a fellow named Ryan Lindsay. He's from Sarnia.
Okay.
And he said that in preparation for the show, he interviewed 180 tradespeople from Sarnia. That he said he asked them what was the best nickname they've heard, the best jokes, the funniest stories from the...
Well, do you want to describe the show first of all?
Well, it's a half-an-hour comedy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of supposed to be blue collar, crass, and I guess it's supposed to be funny. It's not that funny.
And it really has the shape and flavor of a sitcom.
It's a half-hour sitcom.
Yeah, it's scripted. It's not improvised the way Trailer Park Boys was. At least it feels scripted.
Yeah.
And it kind of each episode kind of has the shape of a sitcom episode.
They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying.
Anyway, let's just let's before we get into it though. This is it's about work. This is a show that's about work, about having blue collar work. Something about arts and culture, stories about working class jobs or lifestyles or neighborhoods, blue collar, essentially. Sometimes, I don't know, it's always kind of a funny thing to me because
the people making the show are not blue collar.
This is always a huge problem.
And so it's are you making fun of your characters? Are you... Yeah, sorry, is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always seems to me like there's a contradiction at the heart of an enterprise of this sort, because even in just this brief interview that I read with the creator, he's talking about, people in his family having had similar jobs, talking to people who are blue collar, but guess what? He's not. He's a television writer and producer. So it's just always one of those, I think it hurts.
But that worked in Trailer Park Boys.
It worked. Well, yeah, Trailer Park Boys was another level.
They weren't exactly blue collar. They were more criminals.
Well, Trailer Park Boys, maybe it's just a matter of quality. It was just very well done and very funny. But there's something else happening in Trailer Park Boys where there's no attempt to make them noble.
No.
They're criminals and they're rough and we just love them anyway.
Yeah.
And in this show, The Trades, we're supposed to see these men as noble creatures in some way. This as their work is ennobling and honest and stuff.
Sure.
So maybe it's something about the tone, but that's really not the problem with this show.
Yeah, let's start out by saying there is definitely a problem.
But let's actually start the way we normally do, which is maybe what is your experience of blue collar work? Have you ever had any? Because here I am complaining that this is a show about blue collar people made by a white collar person, obviously. From a very white collar person, that is me. But what have I done in my life as blue collar work? I was a roofer
You worked for your dad's construction company.
Yeah, my father had a home renovations company and did roofs and windows and stuff. So I worked on the crew. So that's not. I mean, I was the boss's son, so that's not exactly. I mean, it was pretty dang rough, that's for sure. But it wasn't. It wasn't the same thing as toiling for your rent, in a job like that. What's the closest thing to blue, like manual labor jobs, right? I mean, what have I done? I mean, I guess that's pretty much it for manual labor.
Didn't you work at a garden center or something?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, most people.
So limited experience.
I guess limited experience for me. I mean, I did do work in service quite a bit, and a little bit in restaurant service.
Yeah.
But that is quite a physical job too. But
yeah,
I didn't do that much.
Yeah, same. I worked in service a little bit, not that much. Was really bad at it. I mean, I really have I've never done any manual labor jobs and have almost no experience of blue collar workplace, I must say.
Okay, I imagined that question taking us further, but it didn't. So let's just do.
And
we don't have any. So
yeah, got nothing.
Maybe we're not the target audience for this. No. Maybe we should accept that.
Yeah, and like some reviews I saw online were saying like, oh yeah, this is like that's exactly what it's like. They got it so right. I saw a couple of reviews like that just from viewers.
Just like user comments.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've already mentioned the stars Rob Wells, who's Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys. He's a guy named Todd Stool, and he's the he's the foreman. He's the foreman at this refinery, and he's rocking a long mullet in the first episode that he turns into a ponytail. A braid that they've been calling the baloney tail. So there are fun quips like that often are pretty good. His sister, a plot point in the first few episodes is that his sister is going to come work at the refinery as well alongside him.
Well, in the first episode, she's living with him rent free because she's kind of having trouble getting her life together, and she's working retail. And then we see the scene where she quits her job selling jeans, and then she like befriends a woman who works at the refinery. She
meets her and it's like, what do you do? And she's like, I work at the refinery. But it's like, that's her initiation to the refinery. Yeah. Her freaking brother and her father work at the same refinery.
Yeah, it's true. She had to meet this random woman to get the idea to potentially become an apprentice there.
There's often the problem, this happens so much. We watched 3 episodes of the show, and there's just a lot of problem with character motivation. Yeah. You're just like, why are they doing that? Like, okay, there's a turn now. This character's changed their mind. Okay, why? Yeah. Why? It's not really. It's just, okay, we need to get on.
And just like what I said about how it's, like I said, each episode has like the shape of a sitcom episode, and you said it's trying, and it's true. Like, it's failing, but you can see that it's trying. But the first scene of this first episode, they set up this like big reveal that Todd Stool is the name of Rob Wells' character.
Yeah, it's also a poop joke as well as kind of a pun.
So Todd is working on something, and we don't know what, and then we know that this something that he's working on is going to be a big deal. And Tom Green, who plays his boss, comes in, and because he's the foreman. Tom Green's the foreman, and then
he's the manager.
Oh, he's the site manager, right? He's the.
And he also doesn't have a big role in the show. He's really just there. He's in the first scene as if he's going to be important, and he's not at all.
But then he comes in, and they have this big fight about this thing that Todd has bought, and it's almost set up like it feels like this is going to be an important element, not only of the first episode, but like of the whole show. And by the end of the first episode, the thing that's under the tarp is like no longer going to be part of the show at all. So it like really weirdly sets up this thing that ends up being nothing.
Now, we're commenting on the first 3 episodes. Now, just like judging by the overall IMDb ratings, which for what they're worth, it does show the first 2 as being the lowest rated.
Okay.
And the pilot was very weak, and it is rated the lowest here. But then we watched the 3rd one just now. We were going to give it like, okay, let's give it one more chance. Watch one more. After not having enjoyed the first 2. And it's like better. It is better. And then the rest of the season are rated more along the lines of the 3rd one, which is rated a little bit higher. So
like by the 3rd one, it's kind of set up all the relationships, and the first 2 episodes are kind of there to set everything up. Like, and the rivalries, and the, this person is friends with this person, and the tensions and whatnot. And then, I guess by the 3rd episode, it can just kind of start rolling along.
Start rolling a little bit better. Yeah. So Todd Stool...
But it's still not good. Like, the 3rd episode is better than the first 2.
Okay, you don't have to, like...
In my opinion.
We don't have to hammer home, pun intended, how much we don't...
I didn't like it.
Okay, this is... Yes.
You don't have to say you didn't like it. I can say I didn't like it.
I didn't like it. But So I'm just trying to get some of the basics out here. So
Okay.
Audrey Stool is Todd's sister. She's played by Anastasia Phillips. Now, who's good on this show? We mentioned Tom Green. He has a bit role in the first episode, and like he really does steal the scene when he's like doing Tom Green, which is like he's snorting coke because he's like a troubled site manager. Yeah, he's like doing whippets. He's like sniffing airplane glue. Airplane glue as he's talking to Rob Wells, to like Ricky. I have a very hard time calling
Todd. His name's
calling him Todd instead of Ricky, but his name's Todd. And so Tom Green really flops around, and like, you know, by the end of the scene, he's on the floor. Look, he falls very funnily. Looks funny for lying on the floor, and he has to go to the hospital. Basically, then that is so that's why they have to bring in a new manager. Now Todd, as the head foreman, the longest serving employee there, he thinks it's going to be him. And he's surprised when, in fact, it's somebody else who becomes site manager. Her name's Chelsea Nakamura, and she's played by Jennifer Spence.
And she's like a newbie sent in from corporate.
That's right. And the other person worth mentioning here, who's supposed to be Todd's like buddy, best friend, also works at the refinery. His name, I don't actually know the character's name. He's played by Dan
Backwater.
Oh yeah, Backwoods.
What, Backwoods. Backwoods is his nickname.
His nickname is Backwoods. That's what they're calling him around the site. His friends call him that. It's played by Dan Petronijevic. Sorry if I didn't say that right. That's McMurray from Letterkenny, a show that was much better than this one. Anyway, he's fun. Like, he's good. I mean, he's not given that much to work with, I feel like, but he does a good job with what he has. So, and then, we only see in the best part of the first episode is Jimmy. This is Audrey's deadbeat boyfriend. He just comes in and he's really funny. He's played by Enrico Colatoni, and we haven't seen him again since.
She basically dumped him in the second episode.
I hope he comes back, because he is good. He's very good. Now, the creator, Ryan Lindsay, I don't really know anything about him except that he's from Sarnia, and was really, talking about that in the promotion for the show, that he's from a blue-collar town. Episode 1, it's called The German Robot. Naomi already described what's supposed to be the kind of the conflict here, is that Todd is into roboticization. Is that
like
a word?
Automation?
Robotics, automation, and he's like designed. Apparently, this guy himself has.
But how did he design it or buy it?
He put it together.
Okay.
And so it's called the Metal-Schelung, which is like they're calling it the Metal Schlong.
Right.
There's a lot of like jokes of that sort here, sexual and scatological humor. And it's just really not clear why Todd thought in the first place he was going to be the champion of automation at this refinery. And everybody tells him, no, it's a bad thing. It's going to take our jobs. And then like at some point during the show, Todd realizes that's true. And then him and his friend Backwoods sabotage the machine by like ripping open the panel when no one's around and peeing on it. And I'm just like, okay, this is the thing that you spent day and night working on, and then you've just decided something.
Yeah, just at the flip of
turns on a dime. Yeah. It's just not well done. Now, like, there's some jokes along the way, right? Like, there's little fun little jokes. They're crass. Like the boyfriend I was telling you about, Todd comes home to find his sister Audrey, because she's troubled and she's unemployed or underemployed. She's like lounging in the hot tub outside. Yeah. Outside. Now, what else is going on there? Something that they never go back to. There is a raccoon. A pet raccoon sitting in its own lawn chair. Yeah. Beside Audrey. And Audrey's talking to herself, but as if, she's basically giving us the exposition of who she is and why her life is hard by talking to the raccoon, who's like chittering in response. Now, I can't tell if it's a real raccoon. It looks good. Is it a real raccoon? In which case, is some sort of animal abuse? Or it's probably...
The raccoon seems
It's probably CGI.
Probably.
And that is a certain kind of humor. Like when you have like animal buddies, that's definitely like Trailer Park Boys style, with Bubbles in the shed with his kittens.
That's true.
And that's, honestly, I'm here for it. I liked it. I liked the raccoon. And when they didn't bring the raccoon back, I understand why. Like, it changed the tone from being like a bit more realistic. That was the thing, right? It's trying to be a bit more realistic about workplace life. So the raccoon buddy was not consistent with the tone of trying to be more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. The raccoon, it had a certain like slapstick quality to it.
Definitely slapsticky. Yeah. And so the deadbeat boyfriend Jimmy, he comes out to jump in the hot tub, and Todd's like, "Oh man, you're wearing my bathing suit." And he's like, and the boyfriend replies, "My dick's barely touched the mesh. I'll wash it for you." This is the kind of stuff. These are the kind of jokes we're gonna get. Yeah. And then the sister later, when Audrey's talking to Todd about the boyfriend who Todd doesn't like, she says, "When there's no Mr. Right, there's Mr. Right now." Pretty clever turn of phrase.
Well,
but,
we've all heard that one before, babe.
Have we?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Unfortunately, that wasn't written specifically for the show. It's actually a cliche.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, they didn't write that?
No.
Oh, dope. So other things like, okay, so the workplace, we go to the workplace, and like, so Todd is hanging out with his work buddies, and there's a cast of characters. There's a large man. There is a tall indigenous man. There is a skinny weird guy. There's the crazy boss.
Yeah.
We already talked about the crazy boss, Tom Green, who's gone. Now the boss is replaced by.
And you forgot about the hot lady.
There's a lady who is hot, and then there's going to be a lady who is Todd's sister.
Yeah.
And so. Anyway, none of they're all pretty, like, as actors, I think they're all pretty good. I just feel like
sure.
They're not working with too much here, but like, let's see, the big fella, he says it's all a matter of time before it goes. He's the most paranoid and critical of automation and this new robot, the welding robot. And this large man says it's all a matter of time before we're all down on all fours, sucking protein pellets out of a robot's dick.
Yeah.
So that's his joke.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of joke in this show, like, that's one of like a few jokes where I sort of laugh.
Yes, we both kind of laugh. Well, Jimmy, the bad boyfriend, is riding in the back of Todd's truck. Todd's giving him a ride home, but he hates him so much he won't let him ride in the up front in the cab. So he's in the box, and he's like talking to Todd through that, that slidey window in a pickup truck that looks out on the box. And so he's like sticking his head talking, and then when Todd doesn't like what he's saying, he'll like slam on the brakes, and then the boyfriend goes flying, and that's like pretty good. Like there's some funny moments, some funny moments like that. And so like Todd's like, yeah, like it's just really, they're having a hard time with like giving these characters motivation to do what they're doing. Like I feel like if there's something good about the show, it is like the quips and like some of the color of the workplace. They make a lot of the bathroom that has all kinds of hilarious graffiti and commentary on it, right? And so they go to that bathroom quite frequently to try to get something funny.
And the closing credits are all like close-ups on the various graffiti.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like pictures of
mostly penises.
Lots of penises, lots of hilarious poo-poo jokes and stuff like that.
It's all poop and erect penises with balls hanging off them. I mean, mostly that's.
Yeah, it is mostly that. It is mostly that.
I'm probably not. I'm probably even less the audience for the show than you are.
I think I'm more the audience for this than you. That's true. Another funny moment, just walking in the hallway of the refinery, like in the office area, there's a big photo portrait of the former manager, who is Tom Green.
Yeah.
And it's just a very funny picture of him. He's just like looking at the camera, like, his dumb slack-jawed face he would do.
Yeah. And then at one point it's like there's another picture stuck on top of it of him lying in a stretcher.
Oh, is that right? They put that one on top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of him like being carried away to the hospital.
They put that picture there? I missed that.
I think so, yeah. Like they slapped that on top of his like official picture. Yeah, at one point you see that.
That's pretty funny, to be honest.
I do like the Tom Green bits. Like he's just being Tom Green.
I'm sure he's kind of improvising actually.
Yeah,
some of this stuff. But his stuff is fun. Now there is a problem with, because I love Ricky and I love the Trailer Park Boys, the early seasons. Like, I've watched seasons 1 through 7, the original episodes of the Trailer Park Boys, those original seasons of the show. I haven't watched. They're continuing to make the Trailer Park Boys. Those original, like, Ricky, Julian, and Bubbles. They have their own production company, and they're producing episodes of the show for their own miniature streaming service that their own fans pay for. So they're still going strong, but like, I have to say, like, it's hard to admit this, but I'm not loving Rob Wells in this at all. Like, he is on screen a lot. He is our main character. He's supposed to be essentially the straight man for kooky characters around him. And like, I mean, I have to say he's not great at it. Like
No.
it doesn't work. Let's say it doesn't work with his acting style or his personality. Like, you know, when he's Ricky's a nut. Like, Ricky is like, if anything, Julian is more the straight man
In Trailer Park
Boys for Ricky. Actually, everyone else, like Bubbles and Julian, are a little bit Ricky straight men. Don't you think?
Well, Bubbles is pretty out there, but yeah, Julian is for sure.
But Ricky is, I feel like, the wildest.
Yeah, he is the wildest, and like he's also, I do feel like obviously Ricky is improvised.
Yeah.
And somehow like Rob Wells just has the sense of this character, and it's really funny, but it's almost like, I hate to say it too, but it's almost like he doesn't have another character in him, or at least not this one. Yeah. And I also feel like he's an improviser, but the fact that like I can almost feel that he's like memorized his lines, and he's like, okay, what do I say next? Like there's almost this vibe that he's like reciting lines rather than,
he does deliver lines in that fashion
rather than acting.
Yeah.
And like he's just saying the lines.
Yeah.
And then often like he looks like he's trying not to laugh, which is, and like it's funny to see someone trying not to laugh. I mean, it's not funny, it's annoying, it's not great. But especially when it's like, it's not even funny. Like you obviously think like he's trying not to laugh when the scene isn't even funny, which is odd. That's how it feels to me.
Well, we don't know the I mean, assuming someone trying not to laugh, it's because something happening on set, and he's just. But I mean, it's not like the fact that you can, like, he just doesn't seem to be acting per se. And like the first scene with him and Tom Green, where they're fighting about the robot, they both kind of seemed like they were trying not to laugh, and like I didn't really care at that point because it's like, but it does throw you off. It makes it's hard to suspend your disbelief when the actors. You can kind of see it's implied that they're having some kind of great time on set, and it's very entertaining to them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you don't like that. Some people always thought, oh, wow, it's so funny on SNL when Jimmy Fallon, because he would always break. Yeah. People go, I love it when Jimmy Fallon does that, but like you can't really do that very much. Yeah, I know. He's like classically did that all the time. And I mean, I guess to me that's less, it throws me off less. Like I don't love it, but it throws me off less because you know you're watching sketch comedy and there's not live audience, and you can kind of like the fourth wall is already broken in that way that you know there's an audience there. But when you're watching a sitcom, like you kind of want to suspend your disbelief and feel like you're not picturing the set. You're not picturing the crew standing around. But then it makes you picture that when the actors are like seem to be having like some kind of inside joke with the crew or something. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it breaks the fourth wall in this implied way. So we already basically gave the through line for episode 1, right? Mm-hmm. By the end of it, Todd's decided he's going to destroy the machine that he was apparently up late working on, although we never really saw him doing that. So we just saw him. And there's so much in it about how he's the guy who loves automation, and everyone, like, there's like jokes about him. There's graffiti about him on the bathroom wall that he's getting kind of like lightly bullied for being the robot guy. So clearly he's been like all up about robots for like some time. I guess it's implied that he's the on management side because he's the foreman, and he's kind of like the go-between between the workers and management. And so he's really enthusiastic about this welding machine. He truly is, and he has to listen to the workers who tell him that this is a bad idea. But like you said, character motivation, it's so weird because like at some point he and his friend go pee in the machine and then like basically blow it up, and you're like, by the end Todd's decided that he doesn't support this machine anymore. He doesn't want this machine anymore. And there's this kind of vibe of like, well, he did the right thing after all. And you're like, what? Why? How? What? And the first one, okay, now maybe we're judging the series a little bit harshly because it is the first episode. Yeah. Pilots are always bad, and honestly, like preparing for this show, because when we do a TV show, we can't watch all of the television show. But you end up watching the pilot because it's the first one, the first episode. Mm-hmm. And it often is like a weak episode. That's so true. The pilot's never the best. Yeah. And it is always kind of setting things up in this way. Like, yeah, like they have to, like, showing how what happened to the former site manager, Tom Green, and then how the new one showed up, and how, and then like it goes on into episode 2, how Todd thinks he's going to be the site manager, but is actually this Chelsea person. And so setting up that rivalry, like I said, it's setting up the kind of what will be the baseline
premises of the show, right?
Mm-hmm. So episode 2 is called The New Boss. And Audrey's now, like, she's going to be working at the refinery now.
She's the apprentice.
She's an apprentice carpenter.
Yeah.
And so it begins with Audrey. I think they just want to get in this joke. So Audrey can't start her old beaten up minivan, and Todd slams the hood. It's like, well, I think Van Halen's finally dead. So that was the name of her longtime minivan, rusted all to hell now, called Van Halen. Now it's dead. Now the place they work, it's a refinery owned by Conch Industries. Conch. So conch, like a conch shell.
Right.
Right. So that's the logo for the business, right? Is it a conch shell?
Yeah, you see like a guy blowing a conch shell at the beginning of the videos and stuff.
Right. So like so Todd is like, so his drug, his very, like, his Tom Green, his wild, like, troubled, drug addicted former manager is in the hospital. So this episode opens with Todd, like, cleaning out the office, getting rid of all the drug paraphernalia and stuff, and all the, like, the porno and stuff that's in there. And before the new manager arrives, Chelsea. Now, so Chelsea is a middle-aged woman in a black pantsuit and high heels. She's confident, and she's, at first, it seems like she hates being here. Like, she doesn't like this place. She's disdainful, although that's not really ultimately her character, but she plays that in the first scene.
I didn't quite get that.
I kind of got that a little bit.
It's more like, to me, it was like she just doesn't fit in. Like, she's so urban or whatever.
Right.
She's
There's
so
this
corporate.
urban. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, this is a problem with character motivation, just basic narrative of this episode, because this episode, the main conflict hinges on the fact that Todd thinks he's the new manager.
Everyone does, though.
Everybody thinks that he's going to be the new site manager.
And they think that Chelsea's there to give him his promotion.
But it makes no sense. Like, that there's this new person.
They just assume that.
There's this new person from management arrived. Why wouldn't you assume that's the new manager? And why would you assume anyway? So it's just like, it's a little confusing why Todd doesn't realize that this Chelsea is like there to take over. Like, obviously, like, what else is she going to do? So so for Audrey, who's there working for the first time, it's her first day, she has to get safety training. Now, have you ever had this orientation meeting, the mandatory orientation at a job?
Totally.
Now, this kind of rang true. This
Definitely.
So she's sitting through basically a video, a totally bored instructor who's just like, look, you can't fail this. No one's ever failed this safety training ever. It's all just a waste of time, but it's mandatory, and they don't learn anything. And so it just is like, that's kind of an interesting, recognizable scene that's playing out.
I remember the training I had at Wendy's. We had to watch a video, and it was like explaining that you had to wear deodorant, and there was like a picture of someone with stink lines coming off them, and it was like, you can't be smelly.
You can't be that person.
And it showed, deodorant, someone putting it on. Like, you have to wash and then put on the deodorant.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's upsetting.
It was upsetting.
Now, I had a funny, I had orientation at, when I first graduated from university. I did orientation for a well-known telemarketing company that had opened their offices a few years earlier in St. Catharines, like, basically because of the cheap real estate there. I remember this. They opened was it in the Kmart or next to the Kmart that was now empty? And like, basically all of my friends at one time or another had summer jobs, part-time jobs in this telemarketing company because it paid better than minimum wage. Yeah. And I had really no intention of really doing this job. But I knew that there was 2 weeks of paid training.
Oh, no, Aaron.
So I just did the paid training.
I'm sure you weren't the only one.
I never showed up for work.
There is a place like that in Ottawa. I never worked at it, but like a bunch of people I knew did. Like my boyfriend and our roommate, I think both worked there, and they did surveys.
Yeah. And
they had to I can't remember what it's called now, but like half the people I knew worked there. It was the same kind of thing. Like it paid okay.
A little bit better.
And I remember one time they had to call people and ask about banks, like what bank they use. And they'd be phoning people like all over North America, And this one guy, my boyfriend at the time, had to ask like, what bank do you use? And this guy's like, in Boston. And he was like, Nasha. Like the story was like, my boyfriend was like, what?
And what is that? What is that bank?
Nasha. North Shore.
North Shore. So,
Nasha.
And that's Bostonian for North Shore.
Yeah.
It would be hard enough to know the name of all the banks and all the other and all the regions of America.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I worked in a telemarketing place too where we had like the stupidest orientation ever. It was in Toronto. Oh my God, so depressing.
What was that one like?
Well, I mean, actually, in that one, they basically just like really tried to drill home that like we had to say exactly what was on the computer screen and like we're not allowed to deviate from it in any way.
The script. Stick to the script.
And it was like no matter what someone says to you, like you cannot say even one word off script.
Yeah.
And that led to like really weird interactions with people on the phone.
Yeah, because you just sound like a robot returning to.
Yeah, and there was even like a guy once who was like, "Are you reading this from a script?" And I just paused and kept going. So I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Because you were being recorded as well.
Yeah. Well, they would listen in, and then if you said something wrong, you'd get like called to the back or whatever.
Oh my God.
And they'd be like, "You invalidated our data."
Terrible job. I mean, yeah, this is a good example. I mean, this is not like blue collar work, but this is highly surveilled, highly
alienated
labor. Not physically dangerous, but honestly, emotionally and mentally dangerous in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, emotionally humiliating and demeaning. Yeah.
So anyway, it's Audrey's first day at work, and she's getting the tour of the facility. So Todd, because he thinks he's going to be the new manager, he thinks, man, he wants to look the part, and everyone's like, oh, maybe you should cut off that baloney tail you're wearing there, his braided mullet. So he does eventually. He cuts it off.
You're forgetting, like you're really underselling. There's like a makeover montage.
Oh yeah, there is a makeover montage.
Yeah,
and everybody's like,
the classic makeover.
It's not a great choice for a montage, but
no.
It's supposed to. All of his buddies are they're like trimming his nose hair, or like, what are they even doing?
They like wax his eyebrows and they pull hair out of his ears with pliers, which is like
instead of tweezers.
Yeah.
Okay, blue collar.
They put makeup on him.
Yeah, okay.
They do all this stuff to him.
But he looks no different.
He looks exactly the same.
Because guess what? He's actually has a lot of makeup on already because he's an actor on screen. But
there's like one of those goofy makeover scenes, and it's like not really ironic. Like it's not played ironically. It's just a straight up makeover scene. I mean, yeah, like they pull.
It's like
funny. Goofy.
It's supposed to be goofy.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be goofy in a kind of like, oh, pliers in your ear, kind of like it's.
Well, they're making fun of him for having to worry about what he looks like. So like, oh, we're gonna give you a makeover, ha, because you're going to management.
Yeah, and then he cuts off his beautiful rat tail braid.
Yeah, he cuts it off. So Todd is like studying for like what he thinks is going to be his interview to become site manager. He's like practicing his speech that he's going to give later that afternoon because he thinks it's going to be announced that he's the manager. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, Audrey's quest, like her like B plot as she's doing her training, is that she realizes at one point that Todd will not be made the manager that day. That's her brother, right? But in fact, it's going to be this other woman. And so Audrey is going to have to try to go find Todd and tell him that he's not going to be the manager. Mm-hmm. Now, to be honest, does this matter that much? Because he's going to find out one way or the other that he's not a manager.
Right, but it's set up as one of these scenes where she's like running through the...
I gotta find him. But it's like, why? Like, I mean, it'd be good if he knew, but...
Well, she doesn't want him to embarrass himself.
Yeah, he would embarrass himself, I guess, so... But she's risking her job to do this. So it doesn't really make... Like, I don't think it's worth risking your job.
And she's, like, running through the machines and being chased and, like...
Yeah, like, she's not supposed to leave her work area.
Yeah.
And so to go find Todd is a risk to her.
Yeah.
But that's my point is it's not well-motivated either. Because it's like, it's okay if Todd...
somehow she knows that, like, she knows that he's going to somehow, like, go up in front of everyone and be like, I'm proud to accept my new position. Like, there's this sense of urgency, like the classic scene of someone like running through an airport or whatever. Like, I have to stop this.
That's right.
I have to stop the bomb from going off or whatever.
Right, but it's just her brother being slightly embarrassed.
Yeah. But
it is honestly a workplace where everyone seems to be getting embarrassed all the time.
But also, like, everyone's on his side, so it's not that embarrassing.
I know.
Because, like, everyone thinks he's getting the promotion.
See, there's nothing much really at stake. Now, I mean, you may say, oh, wow, you're narratively breaking down this like goofball comedy. Aren't you overthinking it? The answer is yes, but that is our job. But the other thing is, okay, so where does the real pleasure or the real fun is supposed to come from here then? Like, okay, so it's in the quips. It's in the, it's supposed to be in the snappy dialogue and the blue collar tinged humor. So we get lovely, lovely quotes like this. So the safety instructor, the guy who's like bored and boring and is cynical and is like, this doesn't matter. This orientation doesn't matter at all. You're fine. At one point, he tells Audrey, for some reason, again, I don't know what motivates him to suddenly like change his tone and talk this way, but he says this, it's my pleasure to be looking at Roddy Stool's cum shot. That's what he says to her.
That's her dad, yeah.
Roddy Stool is their father who worked at this plant, whom this instructor knew.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's a terrible line.
It's disgusting.
Like later on, then he apologizes for having said it, but like
in this way where he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I lost control. I don't know why I said it." Like as if like it's just the kind of thing that would slip out.
Like yeah, I feel like that's not
like what kind of insane person would say that?
Nobody talks like that. I really don't think they do.
Gross.
There's another thing, like, okay, so Roddy Stool, like the two kids, Todd and Audrey, have talked about, isn't Dad such a great guy or such a hardworking guy or such a funny guy? Isn't it wild how he worked at this refinery for years and years and years? And so for like basically almost 2 full episodes now, it's like their dad is dead, right? He's not on. We've never.
Well, they did mention at one point they lived with him. You missed that, I guess.
What?
It was like we live in the house with our dad, my sister, and my dad.
But they've been in the house with no dad,
and no, he's not
and there's
there.
been no dad. So I guess if I missed a moment of dialogue here, you're like everything about what they're saying.
No, it does feel like he's dead. Yeah.
Everything with the show is like, okay, their dad's dead. But no, at the end of this episode, they go home and their dad, and I'm like, who's this old guy in the car in the driveway? I'm like, oh, that's their dad. Their dad's alive. I was like, suddenly like their dad's. So he's listening to the hockey game in his parked car, and he's got a couple of pizzas to celebrate Audrey's first day at work or whatever. So anyway, the Roddy Stool does show up. You get it? Rod Stool, Todd Stool. You get that?
An
Odd Stool.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so
Rod, Todd, and Odd. Yeah.
All right. So so the dad is like happy that his kids are both working at the same place he worked.
Can we stop for a second? So how old are the kids? What do you say?
Yeah, I mean obviously Ricky, Rob Wells is 50.
Yeah, so he's like 50 and Audrey's not that much younger.
She could be 40.
10 years younger?
Yeah, she could be 10 years younger. The actual actress.
But even at 40, it's a funny now I'm going to become an apprentice.
Carpenter.
Carpenter, and it's never occurred to me before to do this.
I know.
It's like this
I know.
You're 40, your whole family works at this refinery, and it's never occurred to you that you could work there too.
But no, because she met another woman who worked there, and this other woman was awesome.
Okay, so it was because she's a woman, and she's like, oh, women can work there too.
Yeah, it feels like, she would have thought about it at some point.
Yeah.
A little bit.
You'd think.
I guess that's the problem with the tone. Okay, if it really were a wacky screwball comedy, stuff like this wouldn't matter. But I feel at times they're trying to be realistic. They're trying to be like, isn't the workplace hard? Isn't there so much BS with management? The next episode especially, we're getting into sensitivity training.
Yes.
And that's very much like a critique of workplace culture, institutionalized, HR, all that stuff. And so there's that element to it as well that is supposed to make it kind of relatable or something. And I feel like...
Although, I feel like that could have been so much funnier. For sure that episode was funnier than the first two.
Yeah.
But it could have been way funnier.
we're talking about the third episode yet. Yeah. So before we get there, let's just finish up episode 2. No, I brought it up first. So episode 2, the dad gives him a pep talk, oh, don't worry, you didn't get the management position, but they're going to need you eventually. You just hang in there or whatever. Yeah. And okay, the dad...
Why does he think that?
Yeah, he has no reason to think that.
No. It's you're the foreman. You're not going to get promoted. Why would you get promoted to site manager?
I don't believe that the father himself had ever been site manager, had he? No.
No.
Sorry, the dad hadn't been site manager.
No, he was a foreman too, right?
I think so. He never rose to site manager, so why would he think his son would?
Well, just because his son was to, he's like, you'll get there. And it's like, but we just saw that
but
he
you
didn't.
lived your whole life working at the same place, and I don't think you did
They
any
bring
better.
in someone from corporate. They don't hire internally.
That's what you said. It's, again, he's trying to just be upbeat and nice. Again, there's no real motivation for it. You're like, you don't really have the right to be so upbeat about this. But anyway, a funny moment. This feels very Ricky. Trailer Park Boys Ricky, is that he cut off the rat tail that day, like a symbol that symbolizes growing up. And he takes out a photo album where there are several rat tails that he had cut off at different ages, and they're smaller and shorter. And so he tapes the one from today.
That was that was quite Ricky.
That was quite a Ricky.
Yeah. And then the dad was like, did you put it in the scrapbook? And he's like, Dad, I'm an adult. And then he goes and does it. That was quite, that felt like could have been in Trailer Park Boys.
That's right. That's right. So, okay, let's go to episode 3 here. We watched the 3rd episode. We already have it's about sensitivity training. And so this, basically this terrible woman, named Janet, shows up, again, sent by corporate to do the mandatory HR, don't swear, use respectful language. She introduces herself with her pronouns. And she's a very unlikable character.
Yeah, she's silly.
She's very silly. I mean, the actress does a great job.
Yeah.
She's played by Jill Anderson, played very well. She's the character. She gives her a lot of energy and stuff.
She has a big silly grin, and she really...
Big wide eyes.
Yeah, and she's really kind of like a school marm, she's shocked when they swear.
Yes. But then, of course, it's played that she's played in such a way that, in fact, she gets an erotic charge from being so uptight.
Maybe.
Did you notice that? At one point, she gets she shivers with delight at the notion of...
Oh, yeah, of doing sensitivity training on people. Yeah.
Well, of giving people reprimands.
Yeah, improving them.
And also encountering their smut.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, okay. And whenever anyone swears or just says something offensive, she sticks a sticker on them.
That's right. So that's a gag that's going on the whole time, is every time someone swears, and that's, of course, every moment.
Yeah. So people are getting covered in these stickers.
And so Todd has decided that we're going to be as offensive as possible and basically wear Janet out, as well as wear out their boss. So what's the manager's name again?
Chelsea. And they
wear Chelsea out by this barrage of paperwork she'll have to do now that there's all of these HR complaints.
Yeah. And then also, meanwhile, Chelsea is told by the big boss, the owner, to do a tool inventory, so they all have to give their tools to the tool.
This is Conch.
Yeah, Charles Conch.
His name is Charles Conch, and he's on a video call. He's the really disgusting old man who is in charge of Conch. And he's trying to shut down this site.
He wants to shut down the site, and so he needs to do a tool inventory, so they all have to give their tools to the tool crib or whatever to do the inventory. And so they can't do any work because they don't have tools. Yeah. And then they're trying to make life difficult in this revenge kind of way by doing so many HR infractions that Janet and Chelsea just have this giant pile of incident reports.
Right. And so they do that, and that happens. Yeah. And then Chelsea decides, again, because she's supposed to be here's the thing, the new manager, we're learning she's actually supposed to be kind of nice. She's on the side of doing a good job.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with her.
No.
It's just we just don't like her because she took away Todd's job.
We're learning to like her, though, because we see, she does care about managing this place well. I think that's what's supposed to be happening.
And she's also a victim of Charles Conch.
That's right. She's similarly a victim of the owner.
Yes.
But so again, I don't understand this. It kind of makes no sense that when all the paperwork arrives, then Chelsea says, okay, well, let's fire one of them. And she decides that, okay, now we can fire one of them because they have all of these HR infractions. And that means that we can fire the one guy named Nate.
I think the reason that they decide to fire the person with the most infractions is because they're they're doing this on purpose. We'll show them. We're going to say now you're so covered in these stickers.
So she didn't. Fired. It seemed to me that she meant that, no, we're really firing them.
I don't think that...
This is the show, not us being unclear, I have to say. Because it's suddenly she's we're going to fire them. So she's joking?
I think she's like, oh, Todd messed with us by making everyone do this. Well, we're going to mess with them by firing one of them.
Yeah, okay, that's not
like
funny.
ruining his life.
That's not funny.
No, but it wasn't supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be like, don't mess with me.
Okay.
Or I'll fire you.
Okay, all right.
But then Nate gets fired, but he never actually seems to take his firing seriously.
Well, he doesn't leave. He doesn't leave work, and he's there, and they're all sitting down planning. Okay, well, now that I'm fired, how do we get back at them again?
Yeah, he does not leave. He does not really believe that he's fired.
He's not fired.
No.
Losing your job's a pretty bad thing.
Yeah, no, but he's just like, no, I'm not fired.
Oh, there's a joke with the sensitivity trainer, right? Because they call him Big Nate because he's a really tall guy.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, that's a racially insensitive nickname because he's indigenous. He's like, well, but my name's Nathan.
Yeah, she says, oh, Nate for native.
Yeah,
and he's like, no, it's for Nathan.
That's right.
And so she was the one being racist.
She was the one assuming racism and being racist at the same time. Anyway, what happens next? So it goes back and forth in this manner. I mean, how do they finally get revenge? They get revenge with even more. No, they get revenge by cleaning up. Now they decide that we're going to actually conform to HR policy and make friends with the pill Janet.
Nate and the other guy go in and they're like, we want to have extra intense sensitivity training.
We want to learn from you, learn from our mistakes and improve.
Yeah, and apparently then we learn that he's allowed to get his job back if he does this training.
Right, but that hadn't been the condition of him being fired.
No, that was never mentioned before. After he's fired, he goes to the sensitivity trainer and is like, I want some training, and she doesn't say but you were fired.
But you don't work here anymore.
No, she just starts training him. And that's when she's titillated with glee that she gets to train them. Yeah. Yeah. Then she makes them do a 500 question questionnaire. And
it, anyway, we don't see that. We don't really see that on screen. But so it ends with Todd going to the manager's office and just being like, what?
Well, no, she at one point Todd also brings Janet to the men's bathroom because he wants to just take up all her time. So he's like, I'm really gonna blow her mind, and he takes her and shows her the men's bathroom. But I know that's earlier.
That's already happened.
But then the men's bathroom gets painted. All the graffiti gets painted over
again because they're like, we're going to conform to HR standards. Yeah. So basically, it's turning out that the sensitivity trainer representative from HR, she has more power than the site manager. Because it's she can decide that, Nate's not fired anymore. And she can decide that everything's good here now because she sees that the bathroom wall has been painted cleanly.
Right.
And it's all of the graffiti and offensive remarks have been removed from the wall.
Yeah. But then there's a kind of funny scene where a guy goes into the bathroom and sees all the graffiti's gone.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun. Well, it's Nate.
Oh, that's Nate? I thought that was someone else.
No, that's Big Nate who goes in there and he looks around and he's about to add his little joke to the graffiti. He pulls out a marker. Then he looks up and notices that the entire wall has been painted clean, painted over. It's a fresh blue color. And he goes, no, and he collapses to his knees and there's epic music. And it feels like it's a reference to maybe a particular movie, or is it just the kind of movie scene where
I think
somebody's very upset?
Yeah, I don't think it's a real reference to something in particular. It's just a lot of scenes like that.
In the world.
Yeah.
In the history of cinema and television. All right, so this kind of ends up with it just kind of wraps up
then no, she decides they're allowed to have graffiti in the bathroom after all.
Well, she kind of gives up on them, doesn't she?
I think she and Todd come to some kind of understanding where she's like, okay, you can have some.
I have no idea. Todd and her have an agreement. I think she just thinks everybody is going to be nice now. And Todd at the end is like, okay, everybody, now that we've got Nate back on board, you can just be jerks again.
He gives them each a marker.
And they just go back in and start doing the graffiti again.
Yeah.
And now the final scene is, because it's confusing or whatever, Nate's working. I don't know. All of this was, why did any of this happen? It's not really clear. But the final scene is is Janet, our prudish sensitivity trainer, going back into the bathroom, seeing that actually much of the graffiti is back there. And it's actually reached a whole nother level. Literally, there is a Sistine Chapel.
It's called the Pistine Chapel.
The Pistine Chapel. Pistine Crapple?
Yeah, the Pistine Crapple.
And there's a version of that drawn on the ceiling. It's like a cartoon representing, Adam touching God's hand, that of course the famous scene painted in the middle of the Sistine Chapel, but instead it's Janet is Adam, and instead of touching God's hand, she's touching a large erect penis with one of the stickers that she'd been putting on everybody for infractions the whole episode.
Yeah.
And it's like quite a well done drawing.
Yeah, it must have taken a long time, but it was done in implied in a few minutes.
That's true.
It's very elaborate.
It's a very elaborate drawing, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool or whatever. And for some reason, it doesn't matter anymore if Janet is upset.
And she's not that upset. She's like, well, I guess I better lighten up. That's
I guess
the kind
she's
of
learned her lesson about being so strict.
She's like, never mind sensitivity.
Never mind my whole life and career. I'll just change my values right now. Yeah, anyway.
She learned a very important lesson about bonding through poo and pee. Erect penises.
Okay, I mean, this episode obviously plays to a very visceral dislike of being overly managed at work, and these kinds of training seminars and stuff that are that are demeaning and invasive, and it acts like a moment where they're just trying to get us all fired. They would like to fire us. They want excuses to fire us, so they're gonna invent infractions that we're having that don't matter to anybody. But there is also a moment when it does seem like even the show is saying that they were legitimately bullying one of the other workers, like the weird guy, the weird skinny guy. It's so funny. He made a complaint to HR because they put a dead pigeon in his lunchbox.
Yeah, and also that they were writing on the bathroom wall about his sexual preferences.
Oh, right. Yeah. So it's
that's actually really
you're
okay.
Oh, so there's actually a constructive role for HR here, because that's actually pretty offensive.
Yeah.
So that would have been me, but it was okay. In the end,
yeah.
because this HR intervention, Janet being there, it's totally in the tone of the show is this is not necessary. We don't like her.
They actually were bullying this guy.
No, looking back at it, wait a minute, they actually did. I don't know. Are they trying to insert some ambiguity in there?
Maybe.
But it feels just so inconsistent, not ambiguous, because there's no question that this Janet is we don't like her, and there's no question that we're on the side of the guys.
Yeah. And even the weird guy is ultimately on the side of the other guys.
Yeah.
He's not really being bullied. He's still one of the guys.
No, he wasn't. In the scenes we see, he's not ever being bullied. He's part of the group.
But if he actually complained to HR, that would imply he was having a rough time.
I know.
Oh, Aaron, I just don't think it all adds up.
It doesn't add up. I think that's an issue here. It doesn't all add up. There's some moments that are kind of laugh worthy, a few of them. There are some good performances from actors, not Rob Wells, unfortunately, the lead. Mm-hmm. But it just doesn't quite add up to the show. It doesn't have a strong through line, and maybe it gets better because it had gotten better. Even in the first 3 episodes, maybe it gets better later on. Leave the door open on that. I have no idea. But I did not like it enough to go back myself.
Yeah, no, me neither.
I feel so this is on Crave. I feel this is of course, this is Crave owned by Bell Media. Always we have these CanCon, CanCon regulations and need to put so much money or dedicate so much streaming time to Canadian content. I feel maybe this is one that's come in because Letterkenny, Crave's, I believe it was the first Crave original series, and it ran for several years and has just recently ended.
Saw Letterkenny.
Well, that's a feature episode of Sweater Weather, I'm pretty sure. But that recently ended, so I think they're trying to replace it with a blue collar guy kind of comedy. Comedy. And so Letterkenny is really like that, or was like that. And
but better.
Oh yeah.
Good.
A lot better than it depends what you like. I mean, we won't talk about Letterkenny right now because the more apt comparison is Trailer Park Boys, but again, that's long past its peak, and it's
I haven't watched a new episode of Trailer Park Boys in so many years.
I think the last one we watched together, it was probably the one we watched together, it was the Christmas special. I think it was from season 3.
Yeah, but we watched a lot.
But we watched a bunch of it together.
That.
We did, yeah.
We watched a whole bunch of. I feel like I saw. I've seen a lot of Trailer
You've probably
Park Boys.
seen it all. You've probably seen it all because they were only.
But not these new ones you're talking about.
Oh no! I mean, I really don't even consider Trailer Park Boys post 2007 really.
Okay, because I almost feel like cringy just thinking about the fact that they're still making them. It seems really.
It's a cash cow. Like you're never gonna have a hit like that again, right? So
yeah, but I mean, they really milked it and then continued.
They're still milking it.
I know. I mean, that just seems like. How much milk can there be in that thing?
Well, they're finding out because I mean, what's happened in Trailer Park was like because it had a second life after having done its first original 7 seasons when Netflix came around and they needed Canadian content and they picked up Trailer Park Boys. And then what happened in that moment is that Rob Wells and then Julian, whatever the actor's name, and Mike Smith, who plays Bubbles, they bought the rights to all the Trailer Park Boys. So like they had like director and writer Mike Clattenburg had owned a big chunk of the rights to Trailer Park Boys. So he sold out to them. He sold out because he didn't want to work on it anymore.
Oh.
He had done all those episodes and then also several movies. And it was just like, I'm done with Trailer Park Boys. So they took over the franchise ownership and then they sold it to Netflix. And and that would have been bigger money than they'd ever seen.
But so those 3 actors just started making episodes like without the writer director
without the original Mike Clattenburg. Okay, and so they started to do more writing and directing and they hired directors themselves. They manage it as a business. It's the Trailer Park Boys franchise. Like
I see.
Those 3 guys own it and they're not going to let it die. So they did several years on Netflix. Already not very good anymore. Those episodes I watched were like, this does not have the magic. Really, it doesn't. And then I watched a little bit, and they basically start producing the show as a web series that they sell access to through their own Trailer Park Boys website. And so, listen, that's their prerogative. This is their career. Their career is Trailer Park Boys, and they're gonna. How many ways can you cut it up and sell it, right? And they're gonna do that. So I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. Like I don't personally find it funny, but if you're a super fan, like you're really happy Trailer Park Boys is still around. So and they're doing they're doing fan service, I guess. So anyway, I don't think this is going to be another Trailer Park Boys.
No, alas, no, it is not.
No, the trades. Any last final comments on the trades? We were not super excited to talk about this one.
No, I really thought it was going to be funnier than it was, and it really wasn't. And it was one of those shows where like you're hoping something funny will happen, and so when something like a bit funny happens, and you kind of chuckle, you're like, oh, okay, I laughed, and you're kind of relieved.
It's hard to write a TV show.
Yeah, no doubt.
When you see like efforts that are only halfway there, you realize, oh wow, you need a lot to go well.
Yeah.
On a TV show to make it work.
That's true.
So it had some elements working, but other elements weren't. So it really fell flat for me. But hopefully the next thing we talk about is a little.
I just think they should have just made the whole thing about Tom Green's character.
It's a shame because Tom Green's gone, and you're like.
Oh.
You're like, wait, he's not coming back?
Yeah.
You're
really
like,
sad.
oh no, where's Tom Green? But I guess he does come back later.
Okay.
He has a couple more.
I mean, it's true that he doesn't have a lot of range as an actor.
No, Tom Green's not an actor.
I mean, flailing around and falling over is what he's best at, and that's what he does.
Give him credit for knowing what he's good at, which is that.
And also having like a crazy expression on his face. Like in the photo that you were talking about, and just kind of looking like ragged and yeah, and he does all that like chef's kiss.
Yes, absolute chef's kiss.
Yeah.
I want to see Rob Wells being kooky again and not being a straight man myself.
But then he'd just be Ricky again. Like he can't just keep being the same character.
Yeah, I like Ricky.
But like they were trying to give him a chance to do something else.
Well, he paid for it because this is like partly funded by his production company.
He was trying to give himself a chance to do something else.
Also, like the most recognizable actor, right? On
except for Tom Green, yeah.
Right, who was yeah. Anyway.
On we go.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up, everybody.
Alrighty. Yep.
Don't hit your thumb with a hammer or anything like that.
And the trades, you mean?
Well, it's the sort of thing that you could have imagined. You know what? They didn't have those kind of gags.
No, they didn't.
I guess that would have been unrealistic.
Well, they're good at their jobs. They're not flailing around.
That's actually true. We don't see them making workplace mistakes or anything.
No. We also don't see them doing a lot of work.
Actually, they don't work.
Okay. Like in workplace TV shows, you never see them working.
No, it's not very fun. But I mean, like, it would be like what would it be, like Three Stooges style? Like, like I'm spraying oil all over myself, which is incredibly dangerous. Obviously, if that kind of thing happens. Like,
No, we can't have that.
you can't have goof 'em ups like that, right? Yeah.
Well, okay. Bye.
Bye.